Hello and welcome to the Creative Pod. In this podcast, we talk on a range of topics from photography, painting, writing, and much more. The goal is that you find value in every episode and hopefully find inspiration to get creative in your own unique way and ultimately become a better member of the society. I would like to thank shishirratanart.com for supporting this channel. If you are looking out for a photographer, original abstract art on canvas, or looking to read a blog, head over to shishirratanart.com. The social media links are in the description. Hello everyone. Today we are going to be starting a series that I will call the Basics series. I kind of felt that it's important for people to know that a DSLR or a mirrorless camera is first and foremost a very sophisticated tool. It is way more complicated than the average camera that we have in our phones. It just shoots photographs. You just have to make hardly any adjustments and you take a picture. But a DSLR is much more complicated than that. Yeah, it can take photos automatically as well, but then why do you want a DSLR when you have to shoot it on automatic? Even if you can afford it, it's still waste of money. There is no real ROI, so to speak. The idea behind this series is to help such people understand what is this camera that they have got, how they can leverage its full potential, get better at photography, and in fact discover the joy of the creative freedom that such an amazing tool can provide you and up your photography game. Look, photography is an art. There is a lot of science to it as well, but predominantly it is an art. Why I call it an art is because it is all about self-expression. It's your creativity and it is your vision that you are bringing forth with that tool. The camera here is only the tool. It is your vision, your knowledge, your skill with the camera and your own creativity which actually will create an image. That is why we have so many people whose pictures can be very different if they shoot the same subject, because they all look at the world in their own ways, right? You and I would think of shooting a coffee mug in very different ways, or we might choose the same angle but we might still play around with other things like the exposure, the shadow and whatnot. So we will get into those, but I want to make sure that you understand that photography is an art. There is a bit of science to it and there are a lot many things that make photography what it truly is, a creative self-expression. So unless you are serious about going down that road, I would say this particular episode might not be too helpful for you, because I won't be talking about how it can help you in your mobile phone or your point and shoot. I'm strictly going to be talking mainly in terms of using a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. Essentially they both are functioning in the same way. They just have some components which are different or non-existent in one or the other. So the basic series. This is an introductory episode about what the basic series is and what I will be covering in that. I will touch upon briefly on those particular topics so that you get an idea as to what I will be talking about and you get an overall holistic picture of the content that will follow this particular episode. Let's first begin with the very basics. Creativity. In case you were thinking I'll say photography, no. It is first and foremost creativity. Now there are people who say, oh, I'm not very creative or I can hardly think creatively. Well, the fact is each and every person is creative, and making a beautiful piece of art or taking amazing photographs, writing some poetry or short story is not creativity alone. It is result of someone's idea, concept, thought that went into that work of art. By nature, we are all creative. In this particular series, in my particular channel, we focus on a few expressions of such creativity. photography being one of those. Now that we all agree that we are creative, let's get on to the main content, and that is all about photography. So let's talk, what is photography? A creative visual self-expression of yourself, of how you view the world. You could look at the world in a very abstract manner. You could look at it in a very literal manner. It's all up to you. But photography is boiling down to your vision of the world and how you interpret or think about it. Why I'm stressing so much on that is because a photograph is not made on the camera sensor. It is not even made in the camera. First and foremost, it is made in your mind. You look at something, you quickly take a picture. Now, between looking at something and taking a picture, your brain has actually done so many things we don't even realize. We have actually envisioned what we want to take and we don't even know that. Some of us who have been taking photographs for so many years, we know before taking a picture we already have in mind what we want to photograph and how it should look. But for the most part, for the most people, we don't even notice that. But believe me, once you get deeper into the art of photography, you will actually understand what I'm saying, and this particular episode will come to your mind at that point of time. I hope you're enjoying the episode. I just wanted to take a brief moment to say that we are open to feature your business or podcast on our channel. If you're interested, please drop a line on Facebook or Instagram to talk details. And now, let's continue with the episode. Photography is first and foremost created in the photographer's mind. It is you who has created the picture first in your brain, and you're now just using a tool, which is your camera, to materialize that particular image, that mental image which you had. Now let's talk about the camera. The camera is only a tool. It is a device that will enable you to realize your mental vision of that picture which you just imagined. A lot of people fret about having the best camera, having the best lens, having the lighting. In the photography community, it is called GAS. It's funny. GAS is GAS, or Gear Acquisition Syndrome. It's all about people thinking, oh, I have to get the latest, the best, then my photography will be better. Please be sure of this, that no matter which camera you buy, even the best flagship camera will not help you get that image or that quality which you desire if you really don't know how to even use that camera. Even if you know how to use a camera, if you don't even understand the bare basics of how to create and compose an image, how does exposure, the lighting, ISO, aperture, all of those things, how do they come together to create an image? If you don't know any of that, then even the best camera in the world can give you such pictures which will look really horrible, and maybe a camera phone could give you a much better image. Because in the camera phone, you just point and shoot, and the camera is deciding all those things for you. You just have to decide where you want to place your subject. So please keep in mind, do not worry about the camera you have. The best camera is the camera you have right now in your hands. And like I mentioned earlier, this is mainly specific towards DSLR and mirrorless cameras. So I'm going to be sticking to that. So whenever I say camera, it is those family of cameras that I'm referring to. So whether you have a Canon 1200D or whether a Nikon 7700, that is the best one that you have right now, because this family of cameras utilize something called the exposure triangle to help you basically shoot images. I will come to that, but before that I want to talk about composition. Very briefly, composition is all about how you are creating your image. I have touched upon this topic in one of my earlier episodes on this channel. It's something called rule of thirds. So that particular episode goes into the depths of what rule of thirds is all about. So composition is all about how you create and compose your image. Where do you place your subject? What is in the background, your foreground, your middle ground, all of those things. It might sound complicated, but it's quite simple. Check out that first episode on rule of thirds or Google it. I even have a blog post on that. I'll link all those in this episode, so don't worry about it. So that is what composition is all about. I will delve deeper into the basic series with regards to the exposure triangle. It consists of three very main things. One, aperture. Second, shutter speed. And third, ISO. Again, very briefly, aperture is basically like an iris which is there inside your lens, and it controls the amount of light that is passing from the lens and hitting the sensor. It only controls the amount of light coming in. The shutter speed talks about the speed at which the shutter curtain comes in front of your camera sensor and goes away. Imagine you are covering your eyes with your hand. Will you be able to see anything? No. But if, let's say, you remove your hand, but you bring it back again very quickly, what will happen? You would have actually got just a little glimpse of what's in front of you. But let's say you do it very slowly, then you get to see more of that image for a little longer period of time. That is basically what the shutter curtain does, and shutter speed is all about how fast that shutter curtain is covering and uncovering the sensor. Last thing is ISO. Now ISO has a full form which I don't remember, but it doesn't matter either. Basically what you need to know is ISO is all about the sensitiveness of your camera sensor to the light that is hitting it. A lower ISO number like 100 is the least. Some cameras even have ISO 50. But generally for the most part, most cameras have ISO 100 as the least sensitive setting for the sensor. They can go all the way up till 1,25,000 and whatnot. It's basically talking about how sensitive your sensor is towards the light hitting it. If it is at ISO 100, the least sensitive, then your pictures might appear a little darker depending again where you're shooting. If you're shooting in bright sunlight, then it will be quite bright. But let's say you keep your camera at ISO 100 but you come indoors. You go into your sitting room, for example, switch off all the lights and just keep the window open as the only source of light, and then you try to shoot a picture. Your pictures will actually be quite dark because your sensor is not very sensitive to the light hitting it. So pictures will appear dark. So you increase your ISO a little, say you make it 350 or 500 or something, then the light hitting the sensor will be more bright because your sensor is more sensitive to it. So it is able to produce brighter pictures. But the fallout of higher ISO is it introduces something called grains, which means in the darker sections of the photo, you will see that it's not very smooth. It will be very grainy. So in my YouTube video for this particular episode, I will actually give you examples of what that grain is all about. All you need to know is the aperture controls the amount of light coming from the lens and hitting your sensor. The shutter speed controls for how long that light is able to hit your sensor because it covers and uncovers the sensor. And the ISO determines how sensitive your sensor is to that light. So the three come together by deciding how much light is hitting the sensor, for how long the sensor is exposed to the light, and how sensitive it is. These three are like the three legs of a three-legged stool. You cannot shoot any picture without any one of these. The stool will fall down. Same way, your image will not be created. You cannot say that, I will never pay attention to ISO, I'll always keep it on 100 only. You can't do that. Because when you increase your shutter speed or decrease your shutter speed, there are pros and cons to it, and I will go deeper into that in the upcoming episodes where I will cover each of these topics in more detail. So with that, I will now come to an end to this particular episode. I hope this gives you a very clear premise as to what this series is all about. Please let me know in the comments or in your messages about what do you think I should cover beyond these three topics. If there's anything specific, I can talk into details about just DSLR cameras, or just mirrorless cameras? I have used both. Or is there anything you want me to talk about specifically about lighting techniques, or you want me to talk deeper into composition, whatever it might be? I would love to hear from you, and I would love to create further content on those things that you're interested in. So let me know in the comments. Check out the links in the description and feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you and help you all. Thank you. That concludes the episode, and we earnestly hope that the topic would have ignited your creativity or inspired you to get started on something. Please ensure to follow us and engage with us on social media. The links are in the description, and also feel free to share the podcast or the episode among your friends. Goodbye and best wishes to you.